right, what's going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power, and the prejudging for the 2025 Pittsburgh Pro just wrapped up. And what an exciting show. This really delivered on the hype that we had been building up for this show over the past several months now. So in the first call-out, you had a six-man call-out, including Leandro Perez, William Bonac, Martin Fitzwater, Nick Walker, Derek Lunsford, and Michael Krizo. So those look to be your top six. I think had Good Vito been in this show, Vito would have also been in this first call-out. Leandro Perez is the guy that competed at the Arnold Classic South America, and he was second to Good Vito there. I think had Vito been here, he would have been in this call-out for sure. Now, I think if you had to put a headline on this Pittsburgh Pro, I think that headline would be "The Mutant is Back." Nick Walker is kind of the story for me of this Pittsburgh Pro. Seeing him come out even in the very first comparisons where they were just numerical order, Nick looks like he's back to his regular self, and that's really exciting to see. I think this is a massive step up over the last time that we saw Nick on stage at the New York Pro, where he beat Martin and it was close. I think this is a little bit of a different story here. I think this show is definitely between Nick and Derek. But I think the headline here, like I said, is that Nick is back. His conditioning was on, and really nobody was really off here, to be honest. I mean, Derek, Nick, and Martin, they all looked really good. Nick, his conditioning was on. He was full as a house. It looked like he brought his waist down. He had better midsection control than he did at the New York Pro. That was kind of a big focal point of criticism on Nick. When he competed in New York, the midsection seemed like it was harder for him to keep in. It was harder for him to control. It was looking distended in some poses. You don't see that here in Pittsburgh. So he brought down the midsection. He was big as a house. He was in really good shape. This reminds me of that 2021 version of Nick Walker when he won that first Arnold Classic. Now, as far as Derek, I think Derek looks good here. I wouldn't say he was as good as he was at the Arnold. I think he's definitely better here than he was at the Olympia in 2024, where he slipped to third. Like almost as good as the Arnold is what he looked here. It looked like he was lacking in the lower body some of that fullness that he had at the Arnold. Conditioning-wise, close to the Arnold, but I still think he was sharper at the Arnold. And with Martin, I think Martin looked a lot bigger here than the last time that we saw him on stage. Fuller, it looked like he added muscle, but I don't think he was quite as sharp as Nick and Derek were. In fact, the way they moved these guys around in that first call-out, Bonac looked incredible, and it looked like there's a chance they might have Bonac over Martin, potentially pushing Martin out of that top three. As far as Krizo looked incredible. His conditioning was on point. He was full as a house, as big as all these pictures that we've seen on Instagram. Krizo nailed it, but I think the thing was he's just not as complete as Nick, Martin, and Derek, and it seems like Bonac as well. But the other thing was his posing. That really stood out to me about Krizo. His posing really needs some work. The back double pose was one that really stood out to me as one that he just really couldn't open up that pose. It didn't seem like he was holding his poses very long. He was very shaky in a lot of the poses, and I think that's something that really hurts him at a show like this against elite-level guys that are veterans at this, and they don't have these same issues posing. But just based on first impressions here and how they position these guys in that first call-out, there's not a doubt in my mind that right now it's between Nick and Derek. And I want to point this out, too. All this talk about black backdrops. This Pittsburgh Pro is a good example of a compromise. It's not a straight, plain black curtain, but it's in between. And that's kind of what I said with the Olympia is like, you don't have to do a complete 180 and go from having these LED screens to just a plain black just curtain. You can meet in the middle a little bit and make it less noisy, make it less loud, less lasers, less smoke, less moving graphics. And I think this is a good example of a compromise. A mostly black LED screen. They still have the logos. They still have the sponsors. They still have a little bit of that moving graphic. So if you really want to have that LED screen and you really want to have those LED sponsor graphics behind the athletes, This is a good example of a compromise kind of meeting in the middle, with the Olympia being on the extreme end and then the Detroit Pro being on the other extreme end. I think this is a really good in the middle version of a dark, less noisy, less distracting background with good lighting. I think they really nailed this backdrop. If you want to have the LED screens, this is an example of how you can still make it work and not take away from the athletes' physiques. And I think that really is the expectation from the Olympia. Not necessarily that complete 180, but something more like this. It can still have high production value that looks really good on screen, and it doesn't have to necessarily be the Detroit Pro. It can just be closer to the Detroit Pro. Something like this, I think, is more what people want to see. Now, let's get into the top 4 call out here. This is the big one. So you had Bonac in there, you had Derek, Martin, and Nick. I think the top 3 is still going to be the guys that we expect it to be. It's going to include Derek, Martin, and Nick. But I think most people's predictions probably are going to change after this prejudging, myself included. Going into this show, I had Derek winning, Nick in second, Martin in third. I think after watching this top 4 call out, I've got Nick winning, Derek in second, Martin in third, Bonac in fourth. And I said in my video yesterday, the final 1 day out video, I said this has that feeling like we were going into the Arnold. Samson Dauda seemed like the clear winner. And it felt that way with Pittsburgh with Derek. And I said, I wonder if we're jumping the gun and we could have another Arnold Classic situation where everybody thinks that Derek's going to win and then somebody else comes in here and takes it. Nick, to me, looks like that's going to be what happens. He looked huge on this stage. He made, honestly, Derek, Martin, and Bonac, he made them look a little bit small next to him. He brought a ton of size. He brought his waist down. His conditioning was good. Nick was 100% on here. I'd say Derek was a little bit off from the Arnold, but I still think he looked better than the Olympia, like I said earlier. And with Martin, he looked obviously bigger, but I just don't think the conditioning was enough to crack that top 2. But after watching this, I really do think there's a very strong possibility of a big upset here in Pittsburgh. Right now, I think Nick is winning this show. And what an incredible comeback that is. From everybody doubting him, everybody counting him out, to now, look at just what happened at the Arnold. Derek beat Mr. Olympia Samson Dauda, putting Derek kind of the favorite going into the Olympia. If Nick beats Derek here, what does that mean for Nick going into the Olympia? Is he now then the favorite? This is huge. Huge for Nick if he wins this show. I think it really reinserts him into that conversation as one of the best in the world. He's still here. He's still a massive threat. He's still got a shot. This Pittsburgh Pro really delivered that excitement. Like I said, I don't feel like any of these guys didn't bring it. I just feel like Derek was a little off from the Arnold, and the Arnold might have been his all-time best, but Derek was still on. Nick was really on. Martin was good. I just don't feel like it was sharp enough. And I feel like I haven't talked enough about William Bonac, but I think it's very impressive that Bonac was in this call-out at 42 years old, and he's still just on top of his game. These are some of the best bodybuilders in the world. And Bonac was really hanging in there with them really pretty good. I think there's a chance we get a really surprising result here in Pittsburgh. I think people thought, Derek was going to win this. Nick is on top of the world right now, walking backstage. I think you could see it in Nick's face. You could hear the crowd reaction for Nick's individual. You could hear the crowd reacting to Nick's poses specifically. And you could see the confidence as Nick kept posing. I feel like Nick knows how on he is. And I feel like Nick knows based on that feedback from the crowd. I think Nick knows he's the favorite to win right now. So I think my final prediction after prejudging, Nick winning, Derek second, Martin third, Bonac fourth, and I think Crizzo's going to take fifth. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, click that bell notification icon, and I want to hear your guys' predictions in order in the comments right now. As always, I love you guys. Appreciate you guys. Nick Strength and Power signing out. All right, guys, don't forget to click that like button and subscribe to this channel if you enjoy the content. Also, check out my Instagram at Nick Strength Power. My Facebook page, which is simply Nick Strength and Power. My secondary YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Vlogs, for vlogs and bonus content that you will not see on this channel. And consider subscribing to my third YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Pokemon, which is all things Pokemon and trading card games, completely unrelated to this channel. So if you're into that, give that one a look. And all links to merchandise and social media will be in the description box below. If you guys want a Nick Strength and Power t-shirt, that will be in the Shopify link below. Have a great day.